If he's cleared to play, if is good. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Lombardi Time Brews. I'm your host, John Delray. Today, going through shout-outs and get-outs from the Packers Week 1 matchup against the Philadelphia Eagles. And there's more get-outs than shout-outs. I don't think that that's a surprise, although, of course, now we've gotten at least decent news on Jordan Love. And Matt LaFleur talked about that a little bit in his press conference. So let's actually start right there with that. So this is Matt LaFleur kicking off his press conference today with news about Jordan Love.
And is Malik going to be the guy as you go forward here, and are you preparing him to be the starter?
Yeah, if Jordan's not cleared, then we'll start Malik and Sean will be the backup.
Right, but he did say if. Now, okay, I gotta believe that maybe that was just a little bit of like healthy optimism from coach, because as has been widely said, you know, we now know that it's an MCL sprain. The range is realistically 3 to 6, although there's a lot of optimism from the Packers side that it actually will be closer to the 3-week side of that. Even some NFL insiders today were talking about perhaps the Vikings matchup, week 4. Maybe that's a realistic target, since the Packers essentially have a mini bye that they're going through right now. But LaFleur at least opens the door for just a little hint of hope. He also did kind of allude to some other things that, you know, maybe the Packers thought that it was better right from the get-go than many of us watching a certain knee-popping video and things to that effect. So he at least left a little glimmer of hope open. He also did say that if Jordan can get cleared, that then they would give him every opportunity to actually get ready to play. I gotta believe this is going to be Malik Willis's week, at least for this 1 week. It seems crazy that Love could even get ready to go by this coming weekend. I just can't see it happening quite yet, barring some kind of miracle. So let's go to a couple of the other nuggets before we get to shoutouts and get-outs that LaFleur actually dropped in his press conference today. One, he gave a shout-out to Edgerrin Cooper, saying, and I quote, "He certainly flashed and made some plays. I would anticipate him getting more time moving forward." Edgerrin Cooper is perhaps a player that we're going to talk about in a little bit. LaFleur also did say that it wasn't perfect. It never is, dropping all of the coaching cliches, but still a shout out for the rookie in that setting. Number 2, he also talked about Nixon's return out of the end zone and how he blames himself for that, saying that it was a communication failure. There was more than just a communication failure on that kick return for Keyshawn, such as like the decision making. Unless Keyshawn Nixon was explicitly told, bring this out, then it shouldn't have been brought out. So it was more than just communication, but of course LaFleur in his LaFleurian way took the blame for that one. Then he also just clarified one other thing that I felt was noteworthy during the press conference. Over the weekend, Diana Rossini reported that the Packers had made a call to Ryan Tannehill, that there was no deal imminent, but that it was in discussion. LaFleur basically came out and said, no. He said that the Packers look at every scenario, but they had not placed calls to any veteran quarterbacks, including Tannehill. And then he even wanted to say, like, I don't know where you guys come up with this stuff, but he kind of alluded to all that. So regardless, doesn't sound like the Packers made that call. Malik Willis is, by all accounts, going to be the starting quarterback for week 2. All right, so let's get to it. The good, the bad, the ugly, the shout-outs, the get-outs, and I even added in for this particular game, too, just guys that did some good and some bad. We're going to cover it all. So before we get started here, just 2 things that I am not going to talk about. One, I'm not going to talk about the refs, because this is an exercise in doing what you can control. And I'm willing to bet that the Packers in the film room are not looking at it and going, if only you would have had a different ref. Like, you control what you can control and try to get better from there. So I'm not even really going to address it. Yes, there were some very, very questionable calls, but we're not going to dwell on it. Then 2, the field. Yes, the field sucked. There's no doubt about it. Regardless of where in the world that field was, it sucked. But both teams had to deal with it. So is what it is. So let's start with the shout-outiest shout-out there is. Jayden Reed. He's number 1. Because at least on this day, he was wide receiver 1. And really not even just that, he was playmaker 1. 1 carry, 33 yards and a touchdown. 4 catches on 6 targets for 138 yards and a touchdown. And now I know a 70-yard touchdown could obviously skew some of these more advanced stats, but I'm going to give them to you anyway because some are freaking immaculate. Of his 138 yards receiving, 54 came after the catch. 3 of his 4 receptions went for first downs. He had a quarterback rating when targeted of 149.3. 4.93 yards per route run, which, if over a whole season, would destroy your typical league leader. I know. Small sample size, 1 game, don't care, still neat. He also forced 2 missed tackles. The only guy in the offense with more forced missed tackles than Reed? Josh Jacobs, who had about triple the touches. Jacobs wound up with 4, Reed with 2. And his PFF elusiveness score, which you can be like, well, that's made up. I get it. But still, nonetheless, 960. Normally, it's in this range of like 100. 960. On a slippery field where his teammates couldn't really dash or cut, Reed had no issues slicing his way to 2 massive game-shifting plays. He now has had 9 touchdowns over his last 8.5 games played. He is a bona fide star in the making, and this game, in a game where so much was going wrong, was one of the best examples. Next shout out, Zach Tom. By far the best of the Packers' best 5 on Friday, Tom received a PFF grade of 92. But more importantly than that, over 38 pass blocking snaps, he did not allow a single pressure. Also had no penalties. Incredibly clean performance for the Packers' right tackle. Number 3, Xavier McKinney. No, it wasn't perfect, but he also was everything we hoped he could be. Got a massive turnover early in the game where he got his interception by reading the quarterback like a book. But like Reed, he did a lot of things that some other teammates could not. He did not miss a single tackle. Yeah, he only had 3 and then 1 assist, but still, he didn't miss one. And that is exactly as advertised with McKinney. His versatility was also on display. 25 snaps from the box, 44 from deep safety, and 7 from the slot. Not only was he the steady presence who did his job and didn't mess up, but factor in that interception, couple pass deflections as well, he made the plays too. Thus far, through 1 week, it was not perfect. It wasn't this game-shattering performance, but it was everything we could have hoped for from the new safety. And then the last shout-out, I know, it's not a long list. The last shout-out goes to Edgerrin Cooper. Very, very small sample size here, but even like Matt LaFleur said in his press conference today, a strong performance with definitive flashes. Upon playback, one thing that you see quickly is Edgerrin Cooper's speed. While Quay may also have speed, the other linebackers like McDuffie, Wilson, Cooper's speed compared to them just stands out. Also of note, again, like McKinney, no missed tackles. And that's made even more impressive by the fact that while he only played 11 snaps, 8 of them were running plays. And he made 3 tackles with no misses. So let's get to a couple of meh here, and then I got a couple of clips for you as we're going to round this out. Meh. One rookie defender who I just wasn't as high on, Javon Bullard. Overall, PFF credited the Packers with 9 missed tackles, of which Bullard had only 1. But a couple things here. 1, the 9 missed tackles I feel from PFF, so generous. That number could have been a lot higher. You know, like some of those performances last year that were like 16, 17, 18 missed tackles for Green Bay. Boy, did it look a lot like that, but they only got credited with 9. Because I think for PFF standard here, they didn't take into account all of like those little curl routes that I was talking about on the watch party all the time, where the defenders, rather than actually trying to hit the receiver, guessed which side they were going to go to and then missed completely and didn't even make contact with the receiver. Yeah, I'm not sure those got counted as missed tackles, because going back and looking at the numbers compared to the plays, I really don't think they were. They realistically should be, though. And Bullard, in that regard, was one of the worst offenders, at least in that category of things. Now, let's also look at the fact that, like, he gave up 44 yards in coverage. Not terrible. However, 32 of which of those came after the catch. And if Bullard was the closest defender to that catch, that's a rough look for the rookie, even for a safety, which normally has slightly inflated numbers there. 32 of 44, that's pretty rough. But why only meh? Why not full-blown, get out of here, Rook? Well, because in spite of his misses, he did still log 8 tackles, 4 of which were stops. It wasn't all bad. It definitely wasn't all good. Still, in my opinion, a rather lackluster debut where I was hoping to see more. Side note here, too. Remember training camp darling, Evan Williams? You know, the guy just picked a couple rounds after Javon Bullard? He, of the 5 training camp interceptions, 0 defensive snaps for Evan Williams. I've talked in the past about his great pass rushing, his great collegiate tackling numbers, etc. On this day, the Packers just didn't need those things because it kind of looked like you did. And I'm not taking on this tremendous stance of like, play all your rookies in their debuts, etc. But like Evan Williams coming off the preseason that he earned the right to get some snaps. The Packers defense just apparently didn't feel the same way. Look, basically what I'm saying here is like, obviously this is a different position, but Isaiah McDuffie logged 74 snaps, many of which were pretty rough. Are you telling me somewhere in the course of the game they didn't want to adjust the package to get some of the linebackers off the field and get more safeties on? Even if Barkley was doing well against you, at least try the safety to see if they can do better than the linebackers who weren't doing great on most plays? No, the Packers didn't think so. It really just seems like a misuse of getting the impact guys on the field. I didn't want to pull the foot on in like the get out category, but questionable at best. The other true meh here, the run defense. I went over the tackling. Yeah, it was bad. No doubt about it. And when you look at Saquon's box score, it's really easy to be like, well, they got absolutely gashed all game long. But that's not really true here. It was just wildly inconsistent. And when it went wrong, it went really, really wrong. So check out this clip. This is from Dan Orlovsky, ESPN's analyst, where he breaks down some of the alignment problems that led to easy gains for Saquon.
Awesome cut by Saquon. Great hole by the right side, but there's a lot that I see with Green Bay defensively, just in the start of this game in this first half when it comes to just poor alignment that I think hurt them some defensively. I mean, if we just cut this in half, the center right here, there's a wide slot out here. There's 1, 2, 3 for Green Bay defensively. And I've got, let's call it 1, 2, 3 for Philly. And then on this side of the defense, I have 1, 2, 3. There's a corner 4, 5, 6 to 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe it just feels alignment-wise, this defensive tackle not being in a shade. I mean, that's an easy double team. And there's also this backside 3 technique, which is outside of this guard, his shoulder. We call that a 3 technique. Alignment-wise, Green Bay affords two easy double teams. First side that's an easy double team up to that backer, and then backside, this is an easy double team to that backer. I mean, again, it's a great cut, but even if he doesn't make that great cut, there is a massive hole there, and I think Green Bay just had some alignment issues. Not only is this defensive tackle head up, he stems out, it looks, well, great shove by Juergens, but I think they got a...
Yeah, so ultimately here's just some really questionable run defense stuff, right? But at the same time, it wasn't all bad, because as Zach Cruz put out on Twitter, a positive for the Packers defense per Next Gen Stats. The Eagles had contact behind the line of scrimmage on 18 of 31 designed runs in the opener. Now that is a really, really healthy number. Now, we talked about the tackling a bunch already because they sucked at it, but reality is they got hands on Saquon behind the line of scrimmage on 18 of 31 carries. That's a really healthy number. So, ultimately, the run defense is not as bad as what the box score appeared to be. I'm also not making the argument that it was good. So, take it for what you will. All right, now let's get to the get-outs. And I know you may be thinking, well, that's a couple Maz. Or may shout out, yeah, the get-outs are pretty much everything else. Like, I touched a little bit on Isaiah McDuffie, but it's true. This is a really bad game for Isaiah McDuffie. I'm not going to fault him even on the coverage of the wheel route to Saquon Barkley that ended in the end zone. There's just no defense for a perfect throw, and that was pretty darn close. It was a great catch by Saquon. McDuffie was in the spot, etc. It just wasn't great. But there were several plays, especially in the run defense I was just talking about, where McDuffie is obviously the one that gets washed out real quick. And there were even some plays where he was literally bowled over, like left his feet from contact from the O-lineman. He also had 2 of the 9 credited missed tackles. If you want to just say the linebackers outside of Edgerrin Cooper in general, because Quay Walker also had 2 missed tackles, and he was the guy in the clip there from Orlovsky, like, I get it. It's just, to me, McDuffie was another level of worse, and that's why he gets included here. Okay, so now the other get out, and I this one's kind of a big one, but it's very true for this game, and it's realistically what cost them the game. And I'm going to house this under one very general term of just football cliches, because 2 big ones come to mind. When you generally hear about complementary football, it's something along the lines of, like, making sure that the offense takes time so the defense can rest, or like the defense making sure the drives end quickly so that the offense actually has a chance with good field position. Offense, defense complementing each other, right? But when your defense gift wraps you 2 turnovers within the 35-yard line in the first half, and you convert that to a measly 6 points, the offense straight up let down the other side of the ball. Then to go with another cliche, let's just touch on situational awareness, right? Because Keyshawn trying to bring it out of the end zone on that kick return, as Matt LaFleur even said in his press conference, it was 7 yards deep and Keyshawn had to jump to get it. Not exactly the best scenario there for you to do a return as the clock is ticking on down. Was he trying to play hero ball? Wasn't a great choice. But then you also, to mirror that, have another corner, Jay Alexander, who made his interception and then inexplicably brought it out of the end zone himself. Again, was it an attempted hero ball? Was it just poor decision making? I'm convinced he didn't see the eagle that was right next to him. But those are 2 perfect examples of plays that could have been absolute disasters. And 2 plays that just weren't the smartest decisions from 2 vets. But even beyond that, let's look again at the 2-point conversion. I hate this play. I hated it from the get-go. This 2-point play conversion attempt right here. I'm trying to bring this one up. This is the 2-point conversion. There it is. There's a few things here. Okay, I'll move it to this angle so you can better see the Packers' offensive line. But this is the 2-point conversion. It's a simple handoff to Josh Jacobs. Now, my thought here is, if this is blocked absolutely perfectly, you probably get the 2-point conversion. But why are you assuming absolutely perfect blocking when the interior of your offensive line is not as good as the interior Phillies D-line? We talked about in the game preview how that was really the biggest matchup in this game that I hated for the Packers, and yet here we are from the 1.5-yard line just trying to gut it out against them. It's just foolish in the situation, in the larger context of the game. So watch Josh Myers specifically in the middle of the line. It's not good. Watch the whole line. You'll see what I mean. This was shared by Peter Bukowski. Here it is. Yeah, did you catch Myers there? Myers snaps it, steps forward, and just gets blown out by 93, the guy who eventually brings down Josh Jacobs. But I hope you see what I mean. Like, if that were blocked perfectly, sure, maybe it's got a chance. But that is just a mess. And you've been manhandled by Philly on that play. Just not great. Didn't put him in the best chance for success there. And then you can talk about the red zone offense on the whole. Now, that one I would put on coaching. I don't like that play call. But then there was also the incompletion to Watson. That just wasn't a good throw. There were other plays in the red zone that just straight up weren't even scheme problems. They were execution problems. And that kind of does take us to the last get out, which is most of the offensive line. Rasheed Walker absolutely needed new cleats in this game, and he never apparently put on them because he was dancing around and gave up a team-leading 4 pressures. Out of all the times that Rasheed Walker played last year and kind of instilled this faith that he could be the left tackle, this was a bit of a step back for him. Now, it's not to blow it up saying that they should look for a new left tackle, whatever. This was just not a great game. Then Myers. It wasn't just the one clip. In fact, there was not a category per PFF that he got a grade above 60, be it pass blocking, run blocking, or overall. He didn't crack 60 on any of them. And then the same can mostly be said for the right guard partnership between Sean Rhyan and Jordan Morgan. I know it's Morgan's first game. Sure, a little bit of leeway there, but for Sean Rhyan, his only grade above 60 came in the pass blocking department when he still gave up one of the Eagles' 9 pressures and one of the 2 quarterbacks' hits. The other quarterback hit was given up by Jordan Morgan. his counterpart. And I will say, in fewer snaps, though, Morgan seemed to perform better than Ryan, and I get why Morgan didn't play more given his injury in the preseason, etc., but still, nonetheless, that area wasn't great. Now, Jenkins, he had a pretty good game. Tom had a great game. The other 60% of the offensive line, even counting Ryan and Morgan as one person, it just wasn't good enough, especially not against elite front like Philly. And even LaFleur said in his press conference today, Indianapolis also has an incredibly good front. Time to buck up on the interior of the line. So you have it. That's the shout outs and the get outs. I started with the positive news. I hope you appreciate that. But yeah, then we eventually got to what I consider to be the roughest portions of this game and what very well might have cost the Packers week 1. Now it's all about staying afloat until the franchise quarterback can make his way back. One thing is for sure, I am excited to see a Malik Willis-led offense next week. It may go great, it may go poor. The exciting thing is we just don't know, and so it will be a lot of fun. Join me on Wednesday afternoon for the next episode of LTB Live, where I'll be sitting here answering your questions about the Green Bay Packers. And one last thing, as always, go Pack Go.